myself, there would be no hope. Right. Come on. So you think that we are not good enough? What other people say, the naysayers say about you, but God has something in store for you greater than yourself. Greater than you. Your platform is bigger than you.
But I went through endometriosis. I went through being sexually abused. I never felt confident enough to say it. But since you're saying it now, I can tell my story.
I'm Debbie Stokes of Three Women Voices. Today, my special guest is a survivor and a thriver who has turned her struggles into lessons and her lessons into power. Sit back as she shares her story from hatred to hope. Now, I introduce to you model, speaker, and mentor, LaAnna Douglas.
My name is LaAnna Douglas. I'm the creator and owner of the brand Hope Still Stands. It's based on my journey from hatred to hope. I was born with one kidney, jaundice, liver infection. I had blood on my stomach, and the doctors didn't think I would survive. They told my parents that I would have to have some procedures done. So they did some ultrasounds, and that's when they found the blood on my stomach. But I had a praying grandmother, praying parents that prayed me through that situation. And by the grace of God, I survived to a point where when I was 5 years old and I was hit with another obstacle. God was with me all along, but I kept getting hit with another obstacle. So at the age of 5, I was molested by a young man in my church. I was in the restroom, came out of the restroom, and there he was. Literally picked me up and put me up against the wall, lifted up my skirt, and began to touch me. I remember the dress, the yellow dress that my mom put me in, and I had the yellow barrettes in my hair. And I remember looking down and seeing the frills of my dress. And after that point, he continued to molest me, continued to touch me. After he started doing it, other young men joined in. So from the age of 5 to 11 years old, I was molested by different young men, including my cousin. That's something that I realize now as an adult. Once you've been molested or raped or sexually abused, it's like you have a stamp on your forehead. And you are really vulnerable, and you may have low self-esteem. And so those men take advantage of that. And so it was just like one after the other. And then the ultimate betrayal was my cousin in my grandmother's house. So I carried that. I was like, what is this happening to me? Why do I keep being touched, being abused sexually? I didn't understand what it meant. And so I kept it quiet. I felt like it was my fault. I was depressed, and I blamed myself. When I was going to school, kids would bully me because of the color of my skin. They would call me ugly, tell me that my skin was too dark, say that I would never amount to anything. So I was really feeling alone. I had the love of my parents, the love of my family, but my peers, when I would see them every day, they would put me down. As I got older, kids would start to jump me and just call me ugly LaAnna when I'm coming down the hallway, just really pick on me. So I was feeling really, really low. And at that time, I started having thoughts of suicide. That's when those dark clouds started to creep in. So I'm like, I've been touched, been sexually abused by all these young men. Now I'm also being called ugly because of the color of my skin. Guys telling me I should have lighter eyes, saying that I'm too skinny, I'm too dark. So I just felt really alone. As years went on, I started my period at the age of 10. When I started my period at the age of 10, I knew I was born with one kidney. My parents told me from when I was born, I was born with one kidney. But I started to have these horrible periods, like crazy periods, so much so that it was like water coming down my legs. I would have accidents in school. So now I'm already, feeling alone and feeling like I'm ugly. Now I'm embarrassed because I'm having accidents in school. So years pass by. I'm going to all these OBGYNs to try to figure out what's wrong. And no one could diagnose my issue. So when I got into my early 20s, like 20 years old, I started having such horrible pain that I would be rushed to the emergency room. My parents would have to take me to the hospital. Sometimes I would be bleeding so much that, my clothes would just be covered in blood. So I was just feeling like, what else could happen to me? Like, I've already had all these obstacles in my way. What else could happen? So finally, there's this young man. I started working at the store Best Buy. And this young man came and asked me out on a date. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wait a minute. This same ugly girl, dark-skinned girl that would never amount to anything, that wasn't good enough. This young man, this handsome young man is asking me out on a date. Literally 4 months later, we were engaged. 6 months later, we were married. And that's the love of my life, Timothy William Douglas. So we got married. Let me backtrack. 2 weeks before we were supposed to get married, the doctor said they want to do surgery on me. They said that I have a cyst on my ovary. I'm like, a cyst on my ovary? All these years I've been bleeding and having accidents. Like, now all of a sudden I have a cyst on my ovary. And I told the doctors no. And I think, and I believe that it was the Lord telling me not to do it. I'm like, I'm not doing this 2 weeks before my wedding. Like, I'm marrying the love of my life. I can't do this, right before my wedding. So I didn't have the surgery. So soon after me and my husband got married, we wanted to start a family. I'm still having these problems with pain on my right side because I have a left kidney, but the right side will always be pain. So I'm like, what is going on with this pain on my right side? Every couple of weeks, I would have this pain and I would still have this horrible bleeding. Changing my pads, like buying pads like crazy. We'll put one on, I have to change it again. So we want to start a family and I can't get pregnant. Like, we're trying and trying. I said, something is not right. So one day I went to go get, my OBGYN recommended me to get a hysteroscopiogram. I go to get the hysteroscopiogram, and that's when they inject dye. They put a speculum in and they inject dye into your belly. And so this is so painful for me. I'm like, what? I've never felt pain. Like, I've had the worst cramps ever. I've always felt like I had 2 periods, 2, times of pain. Like, I would have pain for 5 days on my left and then pain for 5 days on my right. I'm like, what is going on? But this pain was unbearable. So they did the hysteroscopiogram and the radiologist comes out and says, you have half a uterus. I'm like, wait a minute. How do we go from having a cyst on my right ovary to now having only half a uterus? I've never heard such a thing. I've never heard that women can have half a uterus. By the grace of God, at that time, I was working at a hospital and I happened to be working in prenatal assessment. See, God does all things well. He orders our steps. I didn't know why I was working in prenatal assessment. I didn't know that position was going to be something that I needed at that time. So I said, you know what? Even though I'm off today for this appointment, I told my husband, I said, let's go to my job. We get to my job. And there's this doctor that I love, and I thank God for him. I think about him all the time. He's a maternal fetal medicine doctor. I asked him, I said, sir, I just had this procedure done. I know you're in between patients, but can you please look at my films? And he said, sure. And I remember him standing there with his hand on his hip, with his glasses on the tip of his nose, and he puts my films in the screen, cuts the light on, and he said, you don't have a half a uterus. You have 2 uterus. I'm like, 2 uterus? What? Now I'm really dumbfounded. I go from them saying that I have a cyst on my ovary to half a uterus that I never heard of to 2 uterus. I just didn't understand this. He says, you need to find a reproductive endocrinologist that can help you. So I start researching, going to appointments, but I'm researching. I said, I need somebody to understand what I'm talking about. I always felt like I was having 2 periods, but no one's hearing me. They're not understanding me. So I finally find this doctor at Johns Hopkins, and she does a lengthy exam. So much so that I was screaming that the patients next door could hear. And she says, you have a didelphys uterus. I just, like, mind-blowing. What does that mean, didelphys uterus? Well, when your body was formed, she explained to me, that left kidney was formed, but that right kidney did not. So my uterus automatically developed another horn. And I also have a double uterus, and I have a double cervix. It just was so much information. I'm just like, what else can happen? She says, you have to have surgery. From that point, it was like a whirlwind. I had 3 laparoscopic surgeries to open my right cervix, to remove endometriosis. So on top of that, I had endometriosis. So I'm just like really stressed out, but I'm trying to keep the faith, trying to hold on. I'm like, this is for us to have a baby. This is for us to have this time of having a miracle. But we couldn't get pregnant still. She gave me infertility drugs, said you need to do this, do that. You need to do blood work, get MRIs, CAT scans. It was just a whirlwind. So years passed, we got to our 6.5-year mark. And she says, you know what? IUI won't work for you. Because you have a double uterus, that won't work. Because it's just, we'll try to, put the specimen in, it's just going to come back out. We need to do IVF, in vitro fertilization. I'm like, okay, we're going to do what we have to do. It's very expensive. We're like, look, this is where we can have our miracle. We've been through 6.5 years of trying to get pregnant. I went through almost 10, 15 years of this pain. Let's get to the end result so we can have our baby. So we do the in vitro fertilization, wait a couple of days, and that process alone, my heart goes out to every woman that has gone through IVF, because that process of injecting, like my husband would do the injections in my belly, me going to get blood work, driving back and forth to the infertility specialist, it was just so stressful. I mean, it really was, but I had my family, my husband lifting me up. So a few weeks later, you get your results. The nurse calls us and they say, you need to be home when we call. We rushed home from our jobs. We get home, we're sitting on the couch, crunched together on the phone, just so excited. And she says, Mr. and Mrs. Douglas, I'm sorry to tell you, your results are negative. I screamed, I cried, the pain, the hurt, the disappointment. My husband, he continued to talk. I was just devastated. I couldn't even talk anymore. I just was crying. And so after we got off the phone, I said out loud, I said, God, we've served you. God, we are faithful to you. We see other people having children left and right, and they're saying, I have 2 boys. I wanted a boy and a girl. I have 2 girls. I wanted a boy and a girl. And they're ungrateful, or they feel like, oh, I wanted that baby girl, and now we have 3 boys. I was so frustrated. Like, how is it that other people can have kids and we couldn't? What else do we need to do? 6.5 years. So that was 6 years, 6.5 years. My husband, this one particular day, my husband is at work, working night shift. And I was at my lowest. I just didn't want to live anymore. I was so fed up from those dark clouds that were still over me, of being called ugly, saying that I wasn't good enough, being touched without my permission. I was just so fed up. Now I can't give my husband a child. I was pushing my husband away. I was telling him, why don't you marry someone else? Why are you wasting your time with me? You're so handsome. You're successful. Why don't you marry someone else? And he said to me, I love you with or without children. So this particular night, it was 6.5 years, close to 7. My husband was working night shift. And like I said, I was feeling really low, and I found myself in the kitchen. That's the devil really playing with my mind. I was at my lowest. Find myself in the kitchen, and I'm literally looking at the knives, seeing which one's sharper, like which one? Okay, this one's sharp. No, that's not sharp enough. Okay, this one, no, that's not sharp enough. I'm literally lifting the knives up, seeing which one would cut my throat. And the Lord said to me, hope still stands. And I said, hope still stands? What do you mean? Your life has purpose, LaAnna. Not my parents named me LaAnna Hope. I didn't know what that meaning, what hope meant. I didn't get that. All my life, I didn't understand the meaning of my middle name, LaAnna Hope. My first name, LaAnna, is after my grandmother, my great-grandmother at that. Her name was Anna. She was a strong woman, strong, faithful, served the Lord all her life. But that hope, sorry, my dog is barking. That hope, I'm so sorry. He hears the hope too. That hope of hope still stands. It really resonated with me. So I put the knife down. I said, I'm not killing myself.
If I killed myself, there would be no hope.
My husband came home and he said, let's move on. Let's not think about having children right now. Let's just celebrate each other, love on each other. So we did that. We loved on each other. We traveled to California, spent time with our family. We just loved on each other, went to church, just had a great time, went to the movies, just celebrated each other as a couple. So now we get to the 8-year mark. One day, and I will never forget it, I'm laying in the bed and I wake up like suddenly. I'm like, okay, it's time to wake up. And I reach. I'm not looking at my husband. I'm reaching to the other side of the bed. So I'm reaching. And I look and I said, babe, where are you? And I could see the light on downstairs. He says, I'm downstairs. I don't know why my husband's downstairs so early, but he's downstairs. And I said, okay, since he's down there, I'm not gonna tell him I'm gonna take a pregnancy test. I'm just gonna get up and take one. No problem. He won't know. I don't want to disappoint him. Let me just take it. So I get up and take the pregnancy test. And to be honest with you, I'm gonna be, pretty frank with you. I'm peeing all over the seat. I'm peeing all over the floor. I'm like, what is going on? I can't even get it on the stick. That's how I'm just like, why is this happening? I get one little drop. I said, don't look at it. Let it sit there. Don't look at it, LaAnna, because if you look at it now, you're going to be disappointed. Just let it sit and do its 3 minutes. My crazy self, I looked right away, and it was a plus. I never seen a plus. All this pregnancy tests that I've taken, never saw a plus until that day. And I'm looking at the plus sign. I'm screaming. My husband comes running up the stairs, and I'm like, baby, it says plus. What are you talking about? I says, the pregnancy test says plus. I show him the box and he looks at the box. He's looking at the sticker. He was like, yes, that means you're pregnant. I was like, what? You're kidding me. I'm so shocked. I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, the pregnancy test says that I'm pregnant. She says, I'm getting dressed. She gets dressed. I get dressed. When I said earlier that my husband was downstairs reading scriptures about Hannah. He was up reading on the floor, praying to God, reading about how Hannah prayed for Samuel. Not knowing what he was doing, he had faith enough for me when my faith didn't reach out. So I thank God for him. He's always stood by me. He always had faith. So I thank God for him. So I have to say that. But after 8 years, when we went to get our ultrasound, after getting that positive pregnancy test, we were pregnant. By the grace of God, naturally, no infertility drugs, no surgeries. That moment, we were pregnant by the grace of God. So now our daughter is 7 years old, going on 8. 8 is the year of completion. After all that I went through, even before those 8 years of infertility, going through being depressed and having low self-esteem and being called ugly and sexual abuse, all of that, it was preparing me for that moment, for my hope. That hope still stands. She is our hope. So after that point of having our daughter, it was like that hope still stands was really, really burning inside me. What can I do with this? I'm still standing, so I need to tell my testimony so that other people can stand as well. So other people can overcome. They can make it. And God just started opening doors that I just couldn't believe it. So my sister said to me, she was like, and my other my sister cousin, they said, why don't you start taking pictures of yourself? I started posting other women like, hey, they're so beautiful, and they were like, you're beautiful too. Take pictures of yourself and you should post yourself. I'm like, what? Why? You know? So I started posting those pictures, and people would comment, you're so pretty, you're so beautiful, oh, look at you, I love your style. And I'm like, what? It was weird. I've heard it from my husband, I've heard it from my family, but to hear people comment on a picture that I posted, then photographers started to want to work with me for free. What, God, how does this even happen? From that, I went to, taking pictures with photographers. Then I'm walking the runway at Harlem Fashion Week for Ankara Bazaar, working with Kojo Designs, working with Regal Clothes, being the cover of Full Bloom magazine. It's been opening doors, having this opportunity with you, being on radio stations, being able to write. I can write my story because I feel like I have something to say. My life had purpose. At that 6.5-year mark, back then, if I would have killed myself, I wouldn't be here with you today. There would be no Olivia. My daughter wouldn't be here. My husband, he would be heartbroken, my family. So it's like our life has a purpose. There's something that we need to do with our life. Don't sit on your gift. God gives us all gifts. Don't let it sit dormant. Use your gift. So that's where hope still stands. That's what it means. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I never thought that same little black girl, 5 years old, being, pushed up against the wall, being touched, was going to be this woman today, telling my testimony to help someone else. Your test will become your testimony. So I just thank God. God is awesome. And I just bless the Lord for me still being here because hope still stands. It would be God. The Lord has kept me fighting. He's kept me hopeful. He enriches my heart. He strengthens me. He gives me joy. He gives me peace. And he's given me an abundant life. He's given me a beautiful family, my husband, my daughter, our parents and extended family, our siblings. And that's what keeps me going. And then also hearing the comments and people reaching out to me with their stories and saying that I've encouraged them, that gives me hope that I'm doing the right thing. At that moment, I was dealing with the infertility and the disappointment of not being able to get pregnant after doing IVF. The IVF was the most stressful thing that ever happened to me in my life. Out of all the things that I've been through, that IVF, the stress that it puts on women, emotionally, physically, financially, as a couple, it's a lot. And once I felt like I couldn't, my body betrayed me, that I could not carry that child, I could not keep that embryo inside, I couldn't give my husband a child, that was my lowest point. I felt like I was worthless. Just like the bullies said about me as a kid that I wouldn't amount to anything, I felt like that was the stamp. Like it said, you know what, see, just like they said, it was the devil saying to me in my mind, just like they said, you will never amount to anything. Look, you can't even give your husband a child. So that was my rock bottom. I think for me, what helped is much prayer, praying to God for answers, praying to God to keep your mind, because you can get lost when you are feeling alone, when you're feeling like everywhere you turn, you're getting hit with another brick, like another obstacle is in your way. So praying to God for peace, for strength, for hope, for comfort, and also finding a circle of friends, of family that will support you. In our community, I don't know what it is when like someone's going through mental illness or someone lost a baby, we end up sometimes keeping it to ourselves. We don't talk about it. So then as time goes on, you're like, why are you angry? Why are you upset? Because you're holding all that in. we have to speak on those things that we're going through, because maybe someone else is going through the same thing, and you both can comfort each other. So definitely finding a circle of friends, a good support system, not someone that's going to be shady or thinking they just want to get something from you. No, I'm going to support you. And I had my sisters, my parents, like I said, that supported me and lifted me up. My aunts and uncles. I just had a really great support system, and I thank God for that. It is rare. I haven't even heard of a lot of Black people having it. I've heard of a lot of European women having, and there's a lot of types. There's unicornuates, that's half a uterus, bicornuate, didelphys. There's so many different, and I've learned this because once you find out you have something different, you're like, well, I want to know what else there is. The thing about a didelphys uterus, you can be pregnant at the same time in both uterus, and the babies not be twins. 2 periods, the whole 9. Yeah, it's very rare, and for any women out there that have any issues dealing with that, please research, talk to your doctor. Don't be afraid.
I'm also a model. Wait a minute, what? The same one that was ugly?
Exactly, right? I have to give credit to my sisters. I have to shout out to them, Sarah and Joy. God bless them. I love them so much. My sister Sarah bought me the camera, but they both said, why don't you take pictures of yourself? They're the ones that really pushed me. And I was like, I don't know, I'm going out to, some muddy waters. I don't know if I can do this. And they're like, no, you can do it. Take pictures of yourself. So my sister Sarah bought me a camera. It's a selfie camera. And so when you flip it up and you just smile, it takes your picture. And I started posting that, and it just went from there. So I'm feeling excited. I'm grateful. I always go into any runway feeling so grateful. And I always take the time to tell the designer, the producer, whoever is working on the show, the host, I'm like, thank you so much for the opportunity. That's my number one thing. Thank you for the opportunity. I always want to tell people, because I'm like, this is another layer to my story. So before I hit the runway, I'm thinking of my husband at the end of the runway. When people are like, I'm so nervous, there's so many people. Don't focus on them. Focus on someone that you love, that you know loves you. Get to that point, come back with them. That's the way I always do it. So people are like, how did you do it? Yeah, because I'm thinking about my husband at the end of that runway, and he's coming back with me. Tell them that God said we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So he didn't make junk. He didn't make anything ugly. So why do you think you're ugly? You are beautiful. Every layer to you, your personality, everything about you, your gifts will make room for you. Don't give up on yourself. You are beautiful just the way you are. That's what I would tell them. For me, hatred to hope means that I didn't allow my past to dictate my future. That's what hatred to hope means. I didn't let that little girl, that little 5-year-old girl that felt alone and was taken advantage of, I didn't let her stay back there by herself. Now that I'm here at the age of 39, I'm a grown woman, but that little girl's still with me. She's still here. It's a reminder that yes, that little girl went through so much, but you're here now, so you speak for her. That's what hatred to hope is. Hatred. I hated myself back then. I hated myself for years. Not until I got into my 30s did I truly, fully love me. Fully. So think about that. She was 5 years old. Now I'm 39. So that's where the hatred to hope comes in. She's still with me. Yes, ma'am. I had to forgive them, because how could I move on? How could I have peace with myself? I had to forgive them for what they did to me. And I also had to forgive myself for not loving me. When I needed to love myself, when I was at my lowest, I had to forgive myself. That was a battle for me, because I kept pointing my fingers at them. They did this to me. They did this. They took advantage of me. They called me names. They beat me up. But you didn't love yourself. Yes, they did what they did, and God will handle that, because their day will come. Everyone's day will come. But you need to learn to forgive. You can't have peace in your heart. How can you raise your children? How can you move forward? How can you love your husband, love others, when you're still holding that hatred towards someone else? So it was like a full circle moment for me to learn to love me fully. Then I could let that go, and I have released that. Yes. Our daughter's name is Olivia. She is so sweet, funny, happy. She loves gymnastics, and she flips around, and she loves kisses and hugs. She's just the sweetest thing. She's in 2nd grade now. And I tell her all the time that she's a miracle. Every night I pray over her, I tell her, you are a miracle from God. You were prayed for before you were even in my womb. I tell her that all the time, so she knows that her life is already a blessing. And my husband is just, Timothy, he's just so sweet, so loving, and a strong man, hard worker, so supportive. So I'm just truly blessed. I just think it's because of the grace of God. God gave me another chance. He gave me another opportunity to be here, and I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm not going to waste this opportunity. So I just feel his love. I feel the love of my family. I feel the love of my supporters. I can't go a day without thanking my supporters, those that pray for me, my prayer warriors. So that just surrounds me, and I feel it every day. I would tell them to definitely start writing down some of the things that are positive about them. Write those things down, meditate on them, pray on them, and tell others, your circle, find your circle, tell them about the things that you wrote down, so they can start pouring into you. Okay, so you want to do this, you have this gift, let me pour into you. You're feeling uneasy right now, you may be depressed, or especially during this time of COVID, you're missing family, you may have lost your job, but you're still here. You're still here. Use your opportunity to do something with your gift. So that's what I would tell them. Write those things down, whatever it may be. Even though it may seem small to you, it's big to someone else. Write those things down and watch God move on your behalf. Just working with other brands, and definitely going to be writing articles, writing stories, and just writing things that are going to inspire other people. So that's my next thing on the horizon. Yes, I would say you are here for a reason. You are a blessing to others. Even though you think you're by yourself, there's someone watching you. I've learned over time, someone was always watching me. And I recently had someone tell me, you've always inspired me. I didn't know they were watching me, but they want to watch how you handle things. They want to watch how you progress. So know that somebody's watching you. You are a blessing to someone else, even though you don't realize it at this time. Don't give up on you. You are worth, life. Your life is worth saving. You are loved and you are special, and God has something in store for you. Just wait on it. It's coming. So I'm on at Hope Still Stands _LLC on Instagram, and Hope Still Stands LLC on Facebook. My email address is Laanna, LAANNA _TIM at yahoo.com. And you're more than welcome to inbox me on Facebook or Instagram, or send me an email.